All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the House Environment and Transportation Committee for Thursday, February 20th. We will start with House Bill 915, Delegate Foley, Out-of-State Driver Accountability Act.
Can I call my panel, Mr. Chair? Let me see, who do I have here? Have John Becker and Dan Reed and Action Committee for Transit, and yeah, I think that's it.
And on my sheet, it says that John Becker was virtual, had to cancel, so.
Okay. Is that it?
John Snag, who was on virtual. They just showed him. He's on that panel.
Oh, John Snag is on virtual.
Yeah, I just saw him.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and the wonderful members of the Environment and Transportation Committee. For the record, I'm Delegate Linda Foley, and I'm presenting HB 915, Motor Vehicles, Out-of-State Drivers Enforcement. We're calling it the Out-of-State Driver Accountability Act. This piece of legislation is a Vision Zero bill and is a response in part to the DC STEER Act, which passed the DC Council in 2024. The DC STEER Act empowers the DC Attorney General to bring civil suits against out-of-state drivers who have moving violations. While the DC STEER Act has broader provisions, this bill is a response to that and focuses on the ability of the Maryland Attorney General or a local state's attorney to be able to take action against an out-of-state driver or vehicle with unpaid citations, including those issued under automated enforcement programs, in other words, cameras. Just to give you an idea of the scope of this problem, in June 2023, WBAL-TV investigated how many out-of-state drivers are not paying their speeding tickets from speed cameras on I-83 here in Maryland. The data from the Baltimore City Department of Transportation indicated that 43% of out-of-state drivers did not pay their tickets. And yet, there are no tools for our state at this time to go after these drivers to pay these citations. To give a sense of the sheer number of unpaid tickets we're talking about, between July 13th, 2022 and March 31, 2023, about 237,000 speed camera tickets were issued on I-83, according to the WBAL-TV study. Of these, 51,000 were issued to out-of-state drivers, with more than 22,000 of those remaining unpaid at the time of the investigation. HB 915 also requires each county and municipality to submit a quarterly report to the Vision Zero coordinator on each out-of-state citation issued. It is our understanding that the Maryland Municipal League is favorable with amendments to this bill, one of the amendments of which is that if a local jurisdiction has no out-of-state citations, then the jurisdiction shouldn't be required to submit a report for that quarter. And I'm working with MML on this amendment, but I think we'll come to some conclusion on that. Also, our state currently does not allow MDOT to collect uniform ticketing data. The data is kept individually in over 100 jurisdictions across the state, and this makes it hard to determine how many unpaid tickets exist at any given point. That's why I am sponsoring an amendment to allow MDOT to collect data and to allow the department to report both in-state and out-of-state violations. HB 915 begins to address the unpaid out-of-state tickets problem by enabling the Attorney General or state's attorney in a jurisdiction to bring civil action against unpaid or overdue citations, specifically for DC residents and registered vehicles. So this is that part is only about DC residents. It's important to note that no case can be brought if a ticket is being contested, is not past the due date, has been paid, or if it's being paid on an installment program. HB 915 is a reciprocal bill, one that puts our state on the same rules for collection of out-of-state drivers as DC has. It provides local Maryland officials with the tools and resources necessary to ensure our roads are safer while receiving the appropriate revenue from automated traffic violations. For these reasons, I urge a favorable report on HB 915, and I'm happy to answer any questions except those from Terry Baker. I'm happy to answer his questions too.
Would you like your panel to go?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. I'm Ben Ross. I represent the Action Committee for Transit. We support this bill with an amendment that it should apply to all states, all out-of-state drivers. This is as Delegate Foley said, this is a growing problem, not just in Baltimore. In Montgomery County, if you look at, I found some data in Montgomery County, and out-of-state drivers are an increasing proportion over time of the camera tickets, because the in-state drivers know that they'll get caught up when they re-register their car, and they're learning to pay, and the out-of-state drivers are learning that they don't have to pay. That needs to get fixed. We have an additional issue here is that I know in Baltimore City and vicinity, cars registered in Virginia are a serious problem. And if you include all out-of-state drivers, this bill will begin to address that problem, and it will target the most dangerous drivers, which in practice, you're only going to sue the people who have lots of tickets, who are the most dangerous. So as I said, we support this bill, but with the amendment that it should apply to all states.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Reed. I'm the Maryland Policy Director for Greater Washington. We work to advance better policies in housing, land use, and transportation across DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and we strongly support House Bill 915. As written, this bill would allow the state's attorney to go after drivers with unpaid and overdue traffic citations. It is modeled on the DC STEER Act, which we also supported, which empowers the district to hold drivers in Maryland and Virginia accountable for reckless behavior. This is personal for me. I live off of Piney Branch Road in Montgomery County. It's a major road between DC and Maryland, where speeding and reckless driving have been a constant concern. As it currently stands, a driver licensed in the district can come into Maryland, rack up hundreds or thousands of dollars in speeding tickets just across the line in my neighborhood, putting people in both sides of the line in danger and never have to pay. It's only fair that DC and Maryland have reciprocity for traffic citations issued to drivers in the other jurisdiction. This bill recognizes the reality of our multi-jurisdictional region, where people travel across state and district lines multiple times a day. I want to concur with ACT's amendment. I think it should apply to other states as well, like Pennsylvania and Delaware and so forth. This will make the roads safer for Maryland while allowing Maryland to capture much needed revenue during our budget crisis. So we ask for a favorable report. Thank you.
Great. And do you want us to bring up John Sang virtually, Delegate Foley? That
Sure.
work? Okay,
Yeah, go
John
ahead, go
Sang, Maryland Coalition for Roadway Safety.
Hello, Chair Corman, Vice Chair Boyce, and members of the committee. My name is John Singh, and I represent Maryland Coalition for Roadway Safety, aka Safe Roads Maryland. I strongly urge your support for House Bill 915. Maryland drivers are expected to pay their traffic citations. However, some residents of neighboring District of Columbia exploit legal loopholes to evade accountability for violations committed on our roads. This practice puts Maryland drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists at unnecessary risk and cost. As we've heard, Washington already has the STEER Act, allowing its Attorney General to take civil action against Maryland residents for unpaid traffic violations. This bill is not about penalizing responsible drivers. Instead, HB 915 targets chronic offenders who disregard Maryland traffic laws and create hazards on our roads. HB 915 is necessary for these four reasons. First, it ensures reciprocity. Second, promoting road safety. Third, strengthening enforcement. And four, ensuring fairness. HB 915 is a common sense measure that enhances public safety and ensures fairness for Marylanders. I ask for your favorable report on HB 915. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have some questions. Delegate Guyton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate Foley, thank you so much for bringing attention to this problem. This bill, I did not know that we needed it, but it sure sounds like a good idea. And I do have a question, but I want to say that I was unaware, because I have gotten tickets from other states, and I do pay them, so I guess it's okay to say this, and I've gotten a ticket from another country. And I was absolutely unaware that I didn't have to pay those. So, so I did, of course, being the law-abiding citizen that I am. My question to you is, first of all, it would be great for us to have that reciprocity with DC, but given what we've heard from our colleagues here in ENT over the past couple of years about the prevalence, particularly of Virginia tags in Maryland who actually live here but are licensed out of state, would it make more sense to expand this to all states and, in my opinion, all countries?
Thank you, Delegate, for the question, and I kind of knew it was coming based on the testimony here. But, on the surface, that seems like a really good thing to do. But remember, part of this bill is also a reporting and data collection. So one of the things I think we need to be a little bit careful of, I'm not saying I'm against that, but one of the things that we need to be a little bit careful of is if, for example, Virginia does not have the same law as DC has to go after Maryland voters, then our people are going to get nailed with tickets. I mean, they're going to come after us like Maryland with tickets. There is a concern on the part of some local jurisdictions that Maryland voters will be singled out because there isn't this reciprocity. So I think my preference, again, I could be persuaded otherwise, but my preference is to look at the data, see who the out-of-state drivers are that are committing the violations, and then perhaps come back. These are supposed to be quarterly reports, so we should be able to have enough data over, over the next year to figure out what states we should include. I'm not sure we should include all states. There may not be, for example, any reason to include New Mexico, right? So I think we should look at where, it seems intuitive that Virginia would be a state that, we might want to look at. But I think part of the bill is to also kind of dip our toe in the water and then see if this is as big a problem as it is elsewhere. Right now, DC has the law, so it makes sense to do it, a reciprocal bill to DC because they're already able to charge Maryland voters. This is actually empowering them to go after the drivers, right? So that's my response to that. I could be persuaded otherwise, and if the committee wanted to do something different, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it, but I think that's what I've heard from local jurisdictions as to why not to expand it too much at this time.
May I have one follow-up question for clarifying? So I just want to make sure I understand. Currently, out-of-state drivers are receiving the tickets, correctly?
Yes.
Correct? Okay. There's just not been enforcement on whether or not they're paying. They can just ignore them if they want to.
Right, and as I believe it was Mr. Reed testified that, or maybe it's Mr. Ross, that when you, like in Maryland, if you have a bunch of tickets and you go to re-register your car, like you get caught, right? Then you have to pay off the tickets because you can't register the car. Well, you can't do that with out-of-state drivers, right? You have to bring an action against them. You have to actually go after them. There may also be a capacity issue with our Attorney General and State's Attorney, but again, I think that it's worth looking at. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, I just want to keep Delegate Guyton out of trouble. So if I get pulled over in another state and get a ticket, do I have to pay that currently?
You're supposed to pay it, yes.
Yeah, there's an interstate compact that governs that.
Right,
So
right. You're supposed to pay it, yes.
But the speed camera citation, there's no interstate compact for that currently.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that so?
So there's more information there.
Isn't that so?
Yes.
Okay, Delegate Ruth. Oh, sorry, Delegate Terrassa.
I'm now confused so that, never mind, I'm confused now.
Okay. This bill, Delegate Foley, applies to citations from automated enforcement, right?
Yes.
Okay, it does not apply to if you're pulled over and ticketed by a law enforcement officer in another jurisdiction, because that's already covered by another law. Is that correct?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Follow my nod. Is that correct?
Yes. That's correct,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate Foley, for the bill, and to your panel, old friends on your panel. My question has to do with how the mechanisms through which we collect, if your bills are passed, that we would collect the citations, the fines, when the vehicle is a rental vehicle. I'm asking because a constituent of mine came to my office out of the blue the other day to ask why it is that his business, which is a car rental business, gets stuck with the unpaid tickets that his customers have gotten on his rental cars.
I know this is very complicated from the car rental company's point of view, but remember that when you're talking about automated traffic enforcement and photo camera enforcement, all that they get is a picture of the license tag. They don't get any other information on the driver. They're not pulling the driver over, so the citation is going to go to whoever has the registration for that vehicle. And it does, the bill does talk about the driver or the owner of the vehicle. So I think, I may be speaking, I'm not an expert on this, but I think what happens is that the rental car company would get the citation, and then it would be up to the rental car company to pursue the driver if they wanted restitution for that. Do I have that right? Yeah, you don't push the button.
Don't touch the button.
My,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, my, as a non-car owner, I have plenty of experience with tolls, camera tolls, and the rental car companies very definitely come after you if you get a camera toll. I don't have experience with tickets in a rental car, but I'm sure they can use the same system, and I'm sure they do, or try to.
Thank you, Mr. Ross, and thank you, Delegate. Mr. Chair, may I ask a quick follow-up? So because this was a matter of great importance to my constituent, I want to make sure I understand so that I can answer him when he comes back. My understanding is that the rental car companies have to expend a great deal of effort to track customers who've gotten tickets and not paid them. And according to my constituent, again, this is anecdotal, but his business can spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on tickets that are unpaid and that he can't collect. The mechanism, I think, described in the bill, or I think the existing law says something like, you know, if it's a rental car company, they have to get a police report, which is a paper document, and if I don't know, it's too complicated for me, and I'm glad that you're willing to tackle this, but the point is, a small business like that can't necessarily afford the resources to do that level of complicated collection. So what can we do?
Delegate, if I may, I think that's beyond the scope of this bill, because all that this bill, as the chairman got me to agree, is really about automated enforcement of traffic laws, okay? So, you know, and it's about out-of-state drivers, not in-state drivers, or I should say out-of-state tags, right? That's how you identify. And it's just, it's focused on the owners. Whatever the process is that car rental companies have, I have no idea, and that's not this bill. So I don't really feel like I'm in a position to answer those questions or address your concern. You know, I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, I asked. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I asked.
Okay, Delegate Healy.
Mr. Chair. Just along the same lines of what's been asked, but with a little twist. If I understand your bill is aimed at DC basically because they have a policy that they already have in place. Does their policy target only Maryland drivers?
No, it targets, I can't remember, I think I have it here, actually.
It's Maryland and Virginia.
It's Maryland and Virginia, thank you.
Okay, so I guess the question then, I just wonder if it's even, and since we have an attorney, so many attorneys in the room, maybe somebody can tell me, but I mean, there's a lot of things about interstate commerce, and can you single out one jurisdiction just for a treatment that's different from every other jurisdiction in the country? And treat the DC differently from everybody else? I mean, is that legit? Is that constitutional? If you don't know, we'll find out later.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not a constitutional expert.
And I'm not either, so we'll
But
find
DC,
out.
but the
We'll ask somebody
DC,
who knows.
but the DC law presumably has been in effect since, what did I say, 2024? Yeah, passed in 2024. I'm not aware that there's a challenge to the law, and they single out Maryland and Virginia.
Okay, well, we'll look into it. Thank you so much.
Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Delegate, this is an issue, and I have my neighbor got a ticket from DC on a vehicle that hadn't left Somerset County in 10 years. And how is the accuracy going to be for this? I don't want to put DC residents in the same consequence that DC put my constituent in.
Well, I think, you know, we have a very strict and tight, I'll say it that way, automatic enforcement program in Maryland. We are very precise about who gets citations and who doesn't. Those pictures are reviewed and analyzed before a citation goes out. So I have a little more faith in the accuracy of our ticketing procedure. I think, you know, again, this is not a citation that someone was stopped by a police officer. These are automated citations that are generated by speed cameras. So your license plate is on the speed camera or it's not, right? I mean, that's pretty easy to check. So I have actually, you know, your neighbor's experience notwithstanding, I don't know what DC does, but in terms of Maryland, I have a pretty high degree of confidence that we're not going to be charging DC drivers who don't have, you know, who shouldn't be charged. And by the way, the tickets can still be challenged. That doesn't mean that they can't be challenged. The citations can be challenged, and in fact, if they are under challenge in court, then this doesn't apply. The law says that.
Well, he wasn't going to go to DC to challenge the issue, but he didn't pay it either. And it's on a farm truck, and the tag number was the same that was on the farm truck, but it was on a Toyota Camry.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that sounds like that might have been a non-automated citation, because the picture of the license plate would clearly say that it was a farm truck license.
Well, computers don't lie, I don't guess, huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Delegate Lehman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Delegate Foley, for the bill. Mr. Ross, always good to see you. I also had some questions around not just rental cars, but company-owned vehicles that are driven by employees. But rather than delve into that, I can talk to you offline. I did want to ask if you could please share the study that you cited with members of the committee. You threw out a lot of statistics. Could you share that?
This was, again, it was by WBLA TV, and we have that study. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, we'll be happy to share that with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Sarasa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Delegate Foley, for bringing this. Just to bring it back, it seems like we're all pretty fond of this bill. We just want to see it be more.
Yeah.
But just to go back to your statement about why not expand to Virginia and other states, I thought, and maybe and the reason I'm asking is because I think I might be confused about how this works. You said something about if we included Virginia, for example, we might be in danger of Virginia going more after our folks. But isn't the fact that they don't have a similar reciprocal agreement, so they can't right now go after our folks, right?
Well, but they can issue citations.
They can issue citations, but they can't enforce them.
Correct. They can,
Okay.
yeah, but I'm just telling you what some jurisdictions gave me feedback on that
Okay.
part. Because I had that same question,
Yeah,
like, why
okay.
not go after? Yeah,
Okay.
and I think, what prompted this law was DC's going after Maryland drivers, and we have no way to go after the drivers from
Yeah,
DC.
that makes sense.
And I think that, it is worth saying, well, should we, because as been pointed out, that we do have a lot of drivers from Virginia in our state, and I'm sure that they commit a lot of traffic violations. And so, should we be able to go after them? These gentlemen, obviously believe that we should. And as I said, if the committee wants to go down that road, I'm certainly not opposed to it. I just think that, we need to think it carefully before we do it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Boyce?
This is very quickly so I can wrap this up. Delegate Foley, can you talk about the fiscal impact of us not collecting automated tickets, fees from DC? And do you have the data about what that looks like for other surrounding states? Because regardless if they have a reciprocity, and I do thank you for putting this bill in as it relates to the reciprocity to or reciprocal nature for Washington, D.C., I would argue that it would be maybe beneficial to maybe have Virginia like just kind of the DMV. But I'd be interested in knowing the fiscal impact of not being able to collect.
Yeah.
These-
I'm going to let Mr. Ross talk about some Montgomery County figures, but let me just say this. Part of the problem, when we looked at this bill, part of the problem is that MDOT doesn't keep that information. So we don't keep that, we're not allowed. We don't keep that information on a statewide basis. That's an amendment I'm putting into the bill to allow that data to be collected. So it's hard, I think it's hard, and the fiscal note doesn't even go into that.
Right.
I think it's hard to figure out, what the revenue would be without having the data. So an important part of this bill, I know we're all focused on going after the drivers that commit violations, but the other important part of this bill is the reporting function.
Yes, I did get that. I'm just trying to get a mention.
Yeah, but
of
I
the fiscal impact. But then secondly, and this is not for the committee, but maybe for the subcommittee, we can talk about what that process looks like, because I guess I assume that MDOT or SHA or MVA would just send a bulk of what they may have to a Virginia or to a DC and say, here. Because I certainly have gotten a ticket from a U-Haul truck. I don't know, maybe I sped a little bit too much. But they sent me that, and then I had to pay it. So I don't know if then they paid it and then recouped it, but I did get the ticket in the mail, and I did have to pay it.
Yeah.
And I understand for most, in trying to recoup that, not everybody, as Delegate Guyton mentioned, pays, but I did pay. So they do have a way, they just don't have to wait a way of enforcing it where they end up eating the cost.
But automated enforcement is on a local level.
I
And so
understand.
that part of the amendment would say, we're going to aggregate that data and get the information that you seek
Right.
on a statewide basis. But I'm going to let Mr. Ross answer.
That-
give you
I'd
some-
appreciate that.
Yeah, go
Thank
ahead.
I have, there's a Montgomery County report.
Sure.
Which I can share with the committee. Roughly, it looks like, it's not broken down by the state that the out-of-state
Just a number would
driver
be
is
nice.
from. It looked like in the ballpark, if you collected out-of-state drivers at the same rate as in-state drivers,
Yes.
it would be about another, $1 million, $2 million a year. Now, that money would go to the counties.
I understand that. I
Yeah,
just
but
wanted
the
a number.
counties need
Thank you
money,
so
too.
much. Thank you.
Okay. Delegate Foley, I don't know where you got this wonderful idea, but great bill. No further questions.
I
That
agree,
concludes,
Mr. Chair. I agree it's a great bill.
That concludes bill on HB 915. We'll turn